Eleanor Wright sat alone on a metal bench in the busy spaceport of New Houston. She was 87 years old with thin white hair and wrinkled hands that clutched an old paper notebook. People rushed past her without a glance. Some bumped into her small legs that barely touched the floor, but no one stopped to say sorry. The massive domed ceiling of the spaceport showed the stars and 3 passing ships through its clear panels. Holographic signs floated in the air, showing departure times, arrivals, and advertisements for the newest space luxuries. Eleanor watched it all with sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. She had been sitting there for nearly 6 hours. Her legs hurt and her back ached, but she had nowhere else to go. The small bag at her feet contained all she had brought with her: some clothes, her notebook, and a few personal items. The identification chip in her wrist had stopped working 2 days ago, leaving her unable to buy food, book a room, or get on a ship. "Excuse me," she had said to a port worker earlier. "My chip isn't working. I need to get to Galileo Science Station. Can you help me?" The young man had barely looked at her. "You'll need to go to Citizen Services, Section 44B. He pointed vaguely across the massive terminal before hurrying away. Eleanor had found Section 44B, but the line stretched for hundreds of people. Most were off-world visitors with actual emergencies. An old woman with a malfunctioning chip wasn't a priority. After standing in line for 2 hours, she gave up and returned to the bench. Now she was hungry and tired. She opened her notebook and looked at the complex equations she had written. The numbers and symbols meant nothing to most people, but to Eleanor, they told a frightening story. A story about failing starship engines and people in danger. A story no one would listen to. 3 service robots rolled past her. They stopped to help other travelers but moved around Eleanor as if programmed to avoid her. This wasn't normal robot behavior, and Eleanor knew it. Someone had marked her chip as a person to ignore. 50 years, she whispered to herself. 50 years and they're still afraid of me. A loud announcement echoed through the spaceport. "Attention travelers. The shuttle to Orbital Academy will depart from Gate 87 in 30 minutes. All students must present valid identification and travel permits." Eleanor watched as a group of teenagers in matching blue uniforms gathered nearby. They were loud and excited, pushing each other and laughing. Most carried small travel bags and electronic devices. Academy students heading up to the orbital school that trained future ship captains, engineers, and scientists. One student stood slightly apart from the others. He was tall and slim with dark skin and close-cropped hair. Unlike his excited classmates, he seemed quiet, watching the crowd with thoughtful eyes. Eleanor noticed him because he reminded her of her grandson, who had died 20 years ago in what the company had called an unfortunate accident. As Eleanor shifted on the bench, her notebook slipped from her hands and fell to the floor. Papers scattered across the polished surface. She tried to reach for them, but her old joints protested the movement. The boy noticed. Without hesitation, he walked over and knelt down, gathering the fallen papers. "Here you go, ma'am," he said, handing the notebook back to Eleanor. "Thank you, young man," Eleanor said. "It seems courtesy isn't entirely extinct in this century." The boy smiled. "My grandmother would have my hide if I walked by someone who needed help." He looked at her more closely. "Have you been sitting here all day? I noticed you when I arrived this morning." Eleanor nodded. "My identification chip malfunctioned. I can't book passage anywhere." "Where are you trying to go?" "Galileo Science Station." The boy's eyebrows rose. "That's a research facility. Do you work there?" "No," Eleanor said carefully. "But I have important information for them. Lives depend on it." Normally, such a dramatic statement from an elderly woman would be dismissed as confusion or exaggeration, but something in Eleanor's steady gaze made the boy pause. "I'm Darius Jones," he said, extending his hand. "I'm heading to the Orbital Academy." "Eleanor Wright," she replied, shaking his hand with a surprisingly firm grip. Darius looked at the notebook in her lap. Some of the pages had fallen open, revealing complex mathematical formulas and diagrams of what looked like starship engines. "You're an engineer?" he asked, surprised. Eleanor smiled slightly. "I was, a long time ago. Darius checked the time on his wrist display. I have 25 minutes before my shuttle leaves. Let me see if I can help with your chip. Before Eleanor could protest, Darius pulled a small device from his pocket. It wasn't standard student equipment. It looked custom-built. My hobby, he explained, seeing her expression. Electronics and programming. He held the device near Eleanor's wrist. It made a soft beeping sound. That's strange, Darius said, frowning at the readout. Your chip is working perfectly, but it's been flagged with a security block. Someone doesn't want you to travel. Eleanor wasn't surprised. I made powerful enemies long ago. Darius looked at the old woman with new interest. She didn't speak like someone confused or lost. She spoke like someone with purpose. The Academy shuttle stops at Transfer Station 6, Darius said after a moment. From there, you can catch a science vessel to Galileo. Academy students get a companion pass for educational purposes. He smiled. You could be my educational companion. Why would you help me? Eleanor asked. You don't know me. Darius shrugged. My grandmother always said that how we treat those who need help shows who we really are. He paused. Besides, I'm curious about what's in that notebook that has someone blocking your travel. Eleanor studied him. In 50 years of hiding, she had learned to be cautious, but she was running out of time. The equations in her notebook predicted disaster in less than a week. Very well, she said finally. I accept your help, Darius Jones. Darius helped Eleanor to her feet and picked up her small bag. As they walked toward Gate 87, she moved with unexpected steadiness. I should warn you, Eleanor said quietly. The people who want to stop me are powerful. Helping me could put you in danger. Darius smiled. My classes don't start for 2 weeks. I could use some excitement. He had no idea just how much excitement was coming. As they passed a security scanner, a silent alert was triggered. On a ship approaching Earth, a man named Vincent Pierce looked at the notification on his screen and frowned. Impossible, he whispered. But the facial recognition was certain. Eleanor Wright, thought dead for decades, had surfaced, and everything his family had built was suddenly at risk. Vincent pressed a button. Prepare my shuttle and send a security team to New Houston Spaceport immediately. The hunt had begun. The Academy shuttle hummed quietly as it left Earth's atmosphere. Through the large windows, Darius and Eleanor watched as the blue planet grew smaller below them. The other students filled the cabin with excited chatter, but none paid attention to the old woman sitting beside Darius. Your ID trick worked, Eleanor said quietly. The scanner had accepted Darius's student credentials and companion pass without question. For now, Darius replied, but once we reach Transfer Station 6, we'll need a better plan. Security will be tighter there. Eleanor nodded and opened her notebook. She flipped through pages of complex equations until she found a blank one. With a small pencil, she began to write. What are you working on? Darius asked, watching her hand move quickly across the paper. A message, Eleanor said. For someone who might still remember me at Galileo Station. She looked up at him with serious eyes. I should explain why I'm going there. Eleanor turned the notebook so Darius could see her earlier work. The pages showed detailed diagrams of Starship engines, specifically the quantum folding drives that allowed ships to travel faster than light. 50 years ago, I helped create this technology, she said. I was the lead engineer at what was then called Wright Technologies. Darius's eyes widened. Wright Technologies? But that became Galactic Technologies, Inc. His voice dropped to a whisper. The biggest corporation in human space. Yes. My company. My designs. Eleanor's face showed no pride, only concern. But I discovered a serious flaw in the quantum folding process. Under certain conditions, after years of use, the drive creates microscopic tears in spacetime. These tears grow slowly until... Until what? Darius asked when she paused. Until the ship and everyone on it simply disappears, Eleanor finished. Gone from our universe entirely. Darius looked skeptical. If that were true, wouldn't we have seen ships disappearing by now? Eleanor closed her notebook. We have 6 ships in the past 3 years, all reported as navigation errors or unexplained accidents by galactic technologies. But why would they hide something like that? Money, Eleanor said simply. Fixing the flaw would require recalling every ship built in the last 30 years. The cost would be enormous. Darius was about to ask another question when the ship's communication system chimed. Attention passengers. We are approaching Transfer Station 6. Please prepare for docking procedures. Darius looked out the window. The massive wheel-shaped station rotated slowly against the black backdrop of space. Hundreds of ships of various sizes were docked along its outer ring. We need to move quickly once we dock, Darius said. If someone is looking for you, the station's security systems will be scanning for your biometrics. Eleanor smiled faintly. You're quite resourceful for a student. My father works in station security on Mars. I picked up a few things. Darius hesitated. He doesn't exactly know about my hobby of modifying security devices. The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. As the other students gathered their belongings, Darius pulled a small device from his pocket and handed it to Eleanor. Put this in your sleeve, he instructed. It creates a low-level interference field. Not enough to trigger alarms, but enough to blur facial recognition scans. Eleanor did as he suggested. Where does an academy student get such a device? Darius grinned. I made it. Got tired of my parents checking when I came home late. They moved with the flow of students out of the shuttle and into the busy transfer station. The main concourse was crowded with travelers from dozens of human colonies. Shops and restaurants lined the curved walls, while huge windows showed the spectacular view of space. Darius led Eleanor to a large display board showing ship departures. We need to find a vessel heading to Galileo Station, he said, scanning the information. There, the research ship Nova is departing in 3 hours. We need to be on it, Eleanor said firmly. That's a restricted vessel. Only scientific personnel and authorized visitors can board. Eleanor pointed to a name on the passenger list. Dr. Patricia Coleman. She's the current director of the station. She's who I need to see. Darius looked thoughtful. We need to send her a message. Let her know. You're here. Eleanor shook her head. Too risky. Any electronic communication could be intercepted. She patted her notebook. The old ways are safer sometimes. They found a quiet corner in a small cafe. While Darius bought food, Eleanor wrote rapidly in her notebook. When Darius returned with sandwiches and drinks, she tore out the page and folded it carefully. Now we need to find someone from the Nova's crew, she said. Someone who can deliver this note to Dr. Coleman. They finished eating and began walking toward the docking area where the Nova was being prepared for departure. Security checkpoints blocked direct access, but Eleanor spotted a woman in a science uniform heading toward the ship. There, she said, pointing discreetly. The woman with the red hair. Darius nodded. I'll do it. Less suspicious coming from a student. He took the folded note and approached the scientist. Excuse me, ma'am, Darius said politely. I'm an academy student. Would it be possible to give this note to Dr. Coleman? It's about a science project. The woman looked surprised, but took the note. I suppose I could. Are you interested in quantum physics? Dr. Coleman doesn't usually respond to student inquiries directly. It's actually from my grandmother, Darius said, gesturing toward Eleanor, who stood at a distance. She used to work in the field. The scientist glanced at Eleanor but showed no recognition. I'll see that Dr. Coleman gets it, she said before continuing toward the Nova. Darius returned to Eleanor. Mission accomplished. Now we wait. Their wait was cut short when 4 security officers entered the concourse, scanning the crowds with focused attention. They're looking for us, Eleanor whispered. We need to move. Darius guided Eleanor toward a service corridor. As they rounded a corner, they nearly collided with a young woman in a lab coat. I've been looking for you, she said urgently. Her name badge read Dr. Samantha Okafor. Dr. Coleman sent me. She got your note. She studied Eleanor's face. Are you really Eleanor Wright? Eleanor nodded. We thought you were dead, Dr. Okafor said in amazement. Your equations about the quantum fold instability, we've been seeing exactly those patterns in our recent observations. Then you believe me? Eleanor asked. Dr. Coleman is skeptical, but your note included details only the real Eleanor Wright would know. She looked over her shoulder. Galactic Technology security personnel arrived an hour ago. They're searching for an elderly woman and a young man. We need to get you aboard the Nova now. As Samantha led them through a restricted access door, Darius whispered to Eleanor, How did they find us so quickly? Eleanor's expression was grim. Vincent Pierce has been waiting for me to resurface for decades. He always feared this day would come. Who is Vincent Pierce? Darius asked. The son of the man who stole my company, Eleanor replied, and the man who would rather see me dead than let the truth come out. Dr. Samantha Okafor led Eleanor and Darius through a narrow service tunnel that connected directly to the research ship Nova. The metal walls hummed with the station's power systems. Their footsteps echoed as they hurried forward. This access tunnel is for emergency evacuations, Samantha explained. No security cameras here. Darius looked back nervously. Won't they check these tunnels? Eventually, Samantha replied. But it buys us time. They reached a heavy door marked Nova Emergency Access. Samantha pressed her hand against the scanner. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Hurry, she urged. Once inside the ship, Samantha secured the door behind them. The Nova's interior was clean and functional, with white walls and bright lighting. Unlike passenger ships, there were no luxury touches, only practical equipment and narrow corridors. This way, Samantha said. Dr. Coleman is waiting in the science lab. As they walked, Eleanor took slow, deep breaths. The artificial gravity of the ship felt heavy after her years on Earth. Are you all right? Darius asked, noticing her discomfort. Just old, Eleanor said with a small smile. The body forgets. Space travel after 50 years planetside. They entered a large laboratory filled with complex equipment. Screens displayed data, star charts, and calculations. In the center stood a tall woman with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. She turned as they entered. Dr. Patricia Coleman, Samantha announced. This is Eleanor Wright and Darius Jones. Dr. Coleman studied Eleanor with sharp eyes. If you're really Eleanor Wright, you've been presumed dead for almost 20 years. A useful presumption, Eleanor replied. It kept me safe while I worked. Coleman frowned. Your note contained details about quantum physics that few would know, but I need more proof. Eleanor opened her notebook and placed it on a nearby table. Check my calculations against your recent data on fold space distortions. While Coleman examined the notebook, Darius whispered to Samantha, Is the ship leaving soon? In 40 minutes, she replied. We're loading final supplies. Coleman looked up from the notebook, her expression troubled. These equations predict a pattern of quantum fold failures that matches our observations perfectly. She pointed to a specific formula. How did you know about the resonance cascade effect? We only discovered it 3 months ago. Because I predicted it 50 years ago, Eleanor said. That's why George Pierce pushed me out of my own company. Fixing the problem would have delayed the release of the technology by years and cost billions. Coleman's face paled. According to these calculations, the next failure will be the passenger liner Starlight Venture, Eleanor finished. Carrying 3,000 people. In less than 70 hours, a new voice spoke from the doorway. That's quite a claim. They turned to see a tall man with broad shoulders and a security uniform. His badge identified him as Alan Blackwood, security chief. Dr. Coleman, he said. Station security reports Galactic Technologies agents are searching for an elderly woman and a young man who boarded illegally. Coleman straightened her back. Chief Blackwood, this is Dr. Eleanor Wright, the original me, developer of quantum fold technology. Blackwood's expression remained neutral. The same Eleanor Wright who's been dead for 20 years? Obviously not dead, Eleanor replied calmly. Blackwood looked at Darius. And this is? My assistant, Eleanor said before Darius could speak. He helped me reach the station. I need to report this, Blackwood said. No. Coleman's voice was firm but not yet. Eleanor has brought concerning information about a potential disaster. We need time to verify her claims. Blackwood hesitated, then nodded stiffly. You have until departure. Then I must follow protocol. He left the lab, the door closing behind him. He's going to report us, Darius said. Yes, Coleman agreed, but not to station security. I've known Alan for 10 years. He was placed here by Galactic Technologies. Samantha looked alarmed. A spy? They prefer corporate security liaison. Coleman said dryly. We need to work quickly. She turned to a large screen and entered a series of commands. I'm accessing the passenger manifest for the Starlight venture. The screen displayed a list of names and information. Coleman pointed to specific entries. Look, there are 15 Galactic Technologies executives on board, including Vincent Pierce himself. Eleanor's eyes widened. Vincent is on that ship? That doesn't make sense. If my calculations are correct, he's placing himself in danger. Unless he doesn't know about the danger, Darius suggested. Maybe only his father knew the full truth. Eleanor considered this. George Pierce died 10 years ago. He might not have shared everything with his son. Samantha was studying Eleanor's notebook. Dr. Coleman, these equations show the quantum resonance builds gradually before the catastrophic failure. If the Starlight venture is approaching the critical point, we should be able to detect the early signs. Coleman nodded. We need to scan the ship's quantum signature. She moved to a control panel. The Nova has advanced sensors designed for deep space research. We can try to get readings on the Starlight venture's drive system. As Coleman worked, Darius pulled up information about Galactic Technologies on a nearby screen. He read quietly for a moment, then gasped. Eleanor, he said, did you know that you're still listed as the majority shareholder of Galactic Technologies? Eleanor looked surprised. That's impossible. George Pierce took control when he forced me out. He got control of operations, but according to this, you still own 58% of the company's shares. When you were declared dead, your shares went into a trust. The voting rights were suspended, but the ownership remained intact. Eleanor moved to see the screen. George always said he would find a legal way to take my shares. I guess he never did. That makes you, Darius calculated quickly, potentially worth over 300 billion credits. It makes me a target, Eleanor corrected. If I can prove I'm alive, Vincent loses control of the company. A soft alarm sounded from Coleman's control panel. I've got a reading on the Starlight venture, she announced. The quantum signature shows exactly the pattern your equations predict, Eleanor. The resonance is building. How long? Eleanor asked urgently. At this rate, critical failure in 68 hours. We need to warn them. Coleman opened a communication channel. This is Dr. Patricia Coleman, Director of Galileo Science Station, requesting emergency contact with the captain of the Starlight venture. After a moment, a man's face appeared on screen. Captain Harold Miller of the Starlight venture. What's this about, Dr. Coleman? Captain, we have detected a dangerous quantum resonance building in your fold drive system. You need to drop out of fold space immediately and shut down your drive. The captain frowned. Our systems show all operations within normal parameters. Your instruments won't detect it until it's too late, Eleanor said, stepping into view. The resonance builds in a subspace layer your standard sensors can't monitor. The captain looked confused. Who is this? Before Coleman could explain, another face pushed into view beside the captain. It was a man in his 60s with cold eyes and a hard mouth. Eleanor Wright, the man said, his voice tight with surprise. So you are alive. Hello, Vincent, Eleanor replied. Your ship is in danger. You need to drop out of fold space now. Vincent Pierce laughed. Always the same story. For 50 years you've been trying to discredit my father's work. It was my work, Eleanor said, and I'm trying to save lives. Vincent turned to the captain. This woman is delusional. She's been attempting to undermine Galactic Technologies for decades out of spite. The captain looked uncertain. Dr. Coleman, Is there any other evidence of this danger? We're compiling the data now, Coleman began, but Vincent interrupted. Captain, my security team on Transfer Station 6 reports this woman entered the station illegally. She's a fugitive, not a scientist. End this communication. The screen went black. Coleman looked at Eleanor. He cut the connection and sealed the fate of everyone on that ship, Eleanor said grimly. The lab door slid open. Security Chief Blackwood stood there with 4 armed guards. Dr. Eleanor Wright, he said formally. By order of Galactic Technologies Security, you're under arrest for corporate espionage. The security guards moved forward to take Eleanor, but Dr. Coleman stepped between them. This is my research vessel, she said firmly. You have no authority here, Chief Blackwood. I have orders directly from Galactic Technologies. Blackwood replied. This woman is a corporate security threat. She is also the only person who might save the Starlight Venture, Coleman countered. Are you prepared to risk 3,000 lives? Blackwood's face showed conflict. My orders are clear. Samantha moved to a computer terminal, her fingers flying over the keys. Dr. Coleman, I've confirmed Eleanor's calculations. The quantum signature we detected matches her predicted pattern exactly. Darius watched the security chief's reaction closely. Mr. Blackwood, you heard that call. Vincent Pierce dismissed a serious warning without even checking the data. Why would he do that if he had nothing to hide? Blackwood looked troubled. My duty is to protect Galactic Technologies' interests. 3,000 people will die if that ship's drive fails, Eleanor said quietly. Including your boss, Vincent Pierce. Is that in the company's interest? A long moment passed as Blackwood considered. Finally, he lowered his weapon slightly. You have 1 hour to prove your claims with solid evidence. If you can't, I will follow my orders. Thank you, Coleman said. She turned to the others as Blackwood and his guards remained at the door. We need to build a case strong enough that even Vincent Pierce can't ignore it. Samantha pointed to Eleanor's notebook. The equations show the problem clearly, but we need to demonstrate it in a way non-scientists can understand. A simulation, Darius suggested. If we can show exactly what will happen to the Starlight Venture, maybe they'll listen. Coleman nodded. Good idea. Samantha, use the quantum lab to set up a scaled model of the fold drive. Eleanor, can you help program the resonance pattern? Yes, Eleanor replied. Darius, I need you to check something for me. Find out who else is on that passenger list. Look for government officials, corporate leaders, anyone important. As they worked, Blackwood watched from the doorway, his expression torn between duty and concern. In the quantum lab, Eleanor and Samantha created a miniature version of a fold drive contained in a clear chamber. The device hummed softly as it powered up. This will demonstrate the quantum resonance buildup, Samantha explained to Blackwood, who had followed them. We've accelerated the process, so what would take days will happen in minutes. The small device began to glow with blue light. Delicate. Instruments around the chamber recorded data. Meanwhile, Darius had found more information on the Starlight Venture's passengers. He rushed into the lab, his face serious. It's not just Vincent Pierce on that ship, he reported. The passenger list includes 5 Galactic Technologies board members, 3 government transportation officials, and the head of the Interstellar Safety Commission. All the people who could order a recall of the drives, Eleanor said. Her eyes widened. Vincent isn't just risking his life. He's deliberately gathering everyone who could threaten the company in one place. But why? Coleman asked. If he knows about the drive failure, he might not know, Eleanor said. But someone does. She turned to Blackwood. Chief, who gives your orders? Who told you to arrest me? Blackwood frowned. My direct superior is Lisa Vance, head of corporate security. Check if she's on the ship, Eleanor urged. Darius looked through the passenger list again. No Lisa Vance listed. Chief Blackwood, Eleanor said urgently. I believe Ms. Vance is deliberately sending everyone who knows about the drive flaw on a ship that's about to fail. She eliminates the problem and all those who know about it in one move. Blackwood's face hardened. That's a serious accusation. The small fold drive model began to pulse more rapidly. The blue glow intensified. Watch, Samantha said. The resonance is approaching critical levels. On the monitoring screens, they could see energy patterns building in waves. The waves grew larger, overlapping, creating interference patterns. When the waves align perfectly, Eleanor began. Suddenly, the small drive emitted a blinding flash. When they could see again, the center of the device was gone. Not destroyed, simply absent, as if that part of space had ceased to exist. Blackwood stared in shock. What happened? The resonance created a microscopic tear in space-time, Eleanor explained. If this were a full-sized ship drive, the tear would be large enough to swallow the entire vessel. Everyone on board would simply cease to exist. In our universe, we recorded everything, Samantha said. We have proof now. Blackwood made his decision. He raised his communication device. This is Chief Blackwood. I need a direct emergency channel to the Interstellar Safety Commission. Priority code red. They won't respond in time, Coleman said. The Starlight Venture is already showing mid-stage resonance patterns. We have less than 40 hours. There's another way, Eleanor said. She turned to Darius. You found that I still own majority shares in Galactic Technologies, correct? Darius nodded. 58% of the company. Then I can authorize an emergency override of all Galactic Technologies vessels, Eleanor said. Every ship has a safety protocol hardwired into the original drive design. I put it there myself before George Pierce took over. But you've been declared dead, Coleman pointed out. Your authorization codes would have been deleted. Not the master codes, Eleanor said. Those are built into the hardware itself. They can't be removed without rebuilding the entire drive system. She smiled slightly. George always cut corners when he could. We need to broadcast on all emergency channels, Eleanor continued. I need to send the override code to every ship. With a quantum-fold drive, especially the Starlight Venture, Blackwood hesitated, then nodded. I'll give you access to the communication array, but if you're wrong about this, I'm not, Eleanor said firmly. As they hurried to the communication center, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. What's happening? Darius asked. Coleman checked a nearby screen. We're being ordered to delay departure. A Galactic Technology security vessel is approaching the station. Lisa Vance, Blackwood said grimly. She must have realized I'm not following orders. We need to leave now, Coleman decided. I'm ordering emergency departure procedures. The Nova shuddered as docking clamps released. The engines hummed to life. Get to the communication array, Coleman told Eleanor and Darius. Samantha, prepare the broadcast system for a wide-band emergency message. Chief Blackwood, can you delay any pursuit? Blackwood nodded. I can try. But you should know. He looked at Eleanor. Once we do this, there's no going back. Galactic Technologies will use every resource to stop us. I've been hiding for 50 years, Eleanor replied. I'm tired of running. 3,000 people will die if we do nothing. She stood straighter, suddenly looking less like a fragile old woman and more like the brilliant engineer she had once been. It's time to take back my company. The Nova broke free from the station, accelerating away from Transfer Station 6. On the screens, they could see a larger, heavily armed vessel approaching. Lisa Vance's ship, Blackwood confirmed, and she's not coming to help us. The Nova raced through space, its engines pushed to maximum power. In the communication center, Eleanor sat at the main console. Her old hands moved with surprising speed over the controls. Darius stood beside her, watching the screens that showed Lisa Vance's security vessel in pursuit. They're gaining on us, Darius warned. Their ship is faster. We don't need to outrun them, Eleanor replied. We just need enough time to send the override signal. Dr. Coleman entered the room. Chief Blackwood has locked down all weapons. Systems. Lisa Vance can't fire on us without his authorization codes. Good, Eleanor said. That buys us time. She turned to Samantha. Is the broadcast system ready? Samantha nodded. Set for maximum range. We can reach the Starlight Venture and any other ships within 10 light hours. Eleanor opened her notebook to a page filled with long strings of numbers and letters. These are the master override codes. Each quantum fold drive has an emergency shutdown protocol that can only be activated by these codes, plus a biometric confirmation from me. But the Starlight Venture is already in fold space, Darius pointed out. Will they receive our transmission? Yes, Eleanor explained. The quantum fold creates a bubble of normal space around the ship. Communication can still reach them, though it's often distorted. She focused on the console. I need to record the message and attach the codes. As Eleanor worked, the ship shuddered. Alarms blared briefly. What was that? Darius asked. Coleman checked a status screen. They're using a tractor beam to slow us down. We're losing speed. How long until they can board us? Samantha asked. 20 minutes, maybe less, Coleman replied. Eleanor finished typing. The message is ready. She looked up at the others. Now comes the hard part. The system needs to verify my identity before it will accept the override codes. Won't your DNA or retinal scan work? Darius asked. No, Eleanor said. George Pierce would have deleted those from the system decades ago. She smiled slightly. But he couldn't change the one thing built into the hardware itself. My voice pattern matched to a specific phrase. What phrase? Coleman asked. Always. Check your work twice, Eleanor replied. It was something I said to the engineering team every day. She turned to the communication system. I need to broadcast now. Samantha activated the system. You're connected to all emergency channels. The Starlight Venture should receive this. Eleanor leaned toward the microphone. Her voice was clear and strong as she spoke. This is Eleanor Wright, founder and primary shareholder of Wright Technologies, now known as Galactic Technologies Incorporated. I am issuing an emergency override command to all ships using quantum fold drive systems. Authorization code sequence follows. She read the long string of characters from her notebook, then said firmly, Always check your work twice. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the console lit up with response signals. It's working, Samantha said excitedly. Ships are acknowledging the override. Darius pointed to one signal. The Starlight Venture has received the transmission. They watched the screens anxiously. Minutes passed. Why aren't they responding? Coleman wondered. Someone might be blocking the override, Eleanor said grimly. Vincent Pierce or one of his people. The Nova shuddered again as the tractor beam pulled them closer to Vance's ship. We're almost within boarding range, Coleman reported. Blackwood entered the room. I've sealed all entrances to the bridge and communication center, but they'll cut through eventually. We need to strengthen the signal to the Starlight Venture, Eleanor decided. Samantha, can we direct all our communication power to that one ship? Yes, Samantha said, adjusting the controls. But it will be obvious what we're doing. Vance will know exactly which ship we're trying to reach. That's a risk we'll have to take, Eleanor said. She leaned toward the microphone again. Starlight Venture, this is Eleanor Wright. Your quantum fold drive is reaching critical resonance. You must execute emergency shutdown now. Override code final authorization. Always check your work twice. This time the response was immediate. The Starlight Venture's signal pulsed strongly on the communication panel. Drive shutdown sequence initiated, Samantha read from the incoming message. Emergency exit from fold space in progress. Darius let out a breath of relief. They're doing it. Not just them, Coleman said, looking at the other signals. Every Galactic Technologies ship in range has initiated emergency protocols. The override worked for all of them. Eleanor closed her notebook, her hands trembling slightly. 50 years of hiding, and it takes less than 5 minutes to save them all. The Nova shook violently. Warning lights flashed across the control panels. They've locked a docking tube to our main airlock, Blackwood reported. Boarding party is cutting through now. How long until the Starlight Venture is safe? Darius asked. Samantha checked the readings. They'll exit fold space in approximately 10 minutes. If they shut down the drive completely after that, the resonance will dissipate. And everyone will know why, Eleanor added. The emergency override logs everything. The reason for the shutdown, the resonance readings, my warning. It can't be hidden anymore. Which is why Vance is desperate to stop us, Blackwood said. He drew his weapon. I'll hold them off as long as I can. Wait, Darius said. He turned to Eleanor. You said you're still the majority shareholder of Galactic Technologies, right? Eleanor nodded. According to your research, yes. Then you can do more than just shut down the ships, Darius continued. You can remove Lisa Vance from her position. You can take back control of the entire company. Eleanor's eyes widened. You're right. She turned back to the communication console. I need access to the Galactic Technologies Central Network. Coleman moved to help her. We can route through the emergency channels. Your override codes should give you access. As they worked, distant sounds of cutting tools and shouting came from the corridor outside. They're almost through, Blackwood warned. Eleanor's fingers flew over the keyboard. I'm in the system, accessing the corporate command protocols. She looked up at Darius. I need the exact wording for a corporate takeover. Darius quickly searched through company regulations on another screen. Here it is. In case of emergency, the majority shareholder may invoke Contingency Protocol Alpha to assume direct control of all corporate assets and personnel. Eleanor entered the command, followed by her authorization codes. Contingency Protocol Alpha. Authorization. Eleanor Wright, 58% shareholder. Always check your work twice. The screen filled with confirmation messages. Eleanor read them aloud. Protocol accepted. Corporate control transferred to primary shareholder Eleanor Wright. All security protocols now under shareholder command. Just as the door to the communication center began to glow red from cutting tools, everything went quiet. What happened? Samantha asked. Blackwood checked his communication device. They've stopped. He listened to an incoming message, then looked at Eleanor with amazement. Vance's security team just received orders to stand down. Direct from Galactic Technologies Central Command. From me, Eleanor said softly. On the main screen, a message appeared. Incoming transmission from Starlight Venture. When they accepted it, Vincent Pierce's face filled the screen. He looked shocked and angry. What have you done? He demanded. Saved your life, Vincent, Eleanor replied calmly. And I took back what was stolen from me. This is impossible, Vincent spluttered. My father assured me you had been taken care of. Your father lied to you, just as he lied to everyone else, Eleanor said. The drives are flawed, they always have been. He covered it up and now you've been doing the same. Vincent's face paled. I never knew about any flaw. Then you should choose your advisors more carefully, Eleanor told him, starting with Lisa Vance. The screen split to show a second image, Lisa Vance's face. She looked furious. Security. Chief Vance, Eleanor said formally. You are relieved of duty, effective immediately. Vance's image disappeared from the screen. Vincent looked uncertain. What happens now? Now, Eleanor said, we fix what your father broke. Every ship with a quantum fold drive needs to be recalled and repaired. And you're going to help make that happen, Vincent. Eleanor turned to Darius, who stood watching with amazement. You know, when you helped an old woman at the spaceport, I don't think this is what you expected. Darius smiled. No, ma'am, but I'm glad I did. 6 months later, Darius stood at a viewport in the newly renamed Wright Technologies headquarters, watching ships move through space. Each one now carried a modified quantum fold drive, safe from the resonance flaw that had threatened so many lives. Behind him, Eleanor sat at a large desk, looking more vibrant than when he'd first met her. The company was flourishing under her, guidance with a renewed focus on safety and innovation. The Scholarship Foundation is ready, Eleanor told him. 1,000 students from disadvantaged backgrounds will receive full funding for their education, starting next month. That's amazing, Darius said. And the position you mentioned for me? Director of the foundation, Eleanor confirmed. If you want it, you'll need to finish your academy training first, of course. Darius looked out at the stars. When you were sitting alone at that spaceport, did you ever imagine things would turn out this way? Eleanor joined him at the viewport.